Syracuse and Holy Cross family weekend, a family affair between these two programs that have had a history in the past. But the Orange have taken on the Crusaders many times in the past. They've won the last 15 games. In this one, the Crusaders kept it close, maybe too close for comfort in the first half. But in the end, SU pulled away 42-14 over HC. Yes, there were positives. Kyle McCord tossed another 4 touchdowns. King Joseph Edwards reigned in the second half, and Jackson Meeks had the game of his career. But we've still got questions about this team in this game. We'll be asking them next on Orange Press Pass, which starts right now. Thank you so much for joining us here on Orange Press Pass. Syracuse takes down Holy Cross 42-14 alongside AJ Myers and Jish Sokolsky. I'm Peter Elliott. All right, guys, Syracuse improving to 3-1 over this 1-2 Holy Cross team, now 1-3. It wasn't the game I think we expected to see. This is an undersized FCS team. Usually you expect the Orange to romp in this one, but in the first half it was a little too close. In the end, they pulled ahead. But AJ, it was fun watching this game with you as well as Jish. I want to know your first thoughts on this game.
Peter, you kind of alluded to it. My first thought just is this game was way too close. In the second quarter, it was a one-score game. This is Holy Cross. This was supposed to be a blowout. Kyle McCord was supposed to be on the bench in the second quarter. We were supposed to see the reserves, all the reserves, by the second quarter, at least the third quarter. That just didn't happen. Yes, if you look at the final score, it was a blowout. But I still have a lot of concerns because this was not convincing from SU.
AJ, you kind of touched on my initial thoughts as well. Those starters were in way too long. LaQuint Allen in the third quarter got his ankle tweaked, and I wanted to throw something at the TV. I'm telling you, if Syracuse just did what they had to do in that first half, got rid of the unnecessary mistakes, got some pressure on the quarterback, then you wouldn't have to even see Kyle McCord in the second half, and because of that, that's kind of a travesty in and of itself.
Well, in the end, of course, the Orange took on, they took out this one with the win 42-14. But let's show you the highlights from inside the dome as the Orange were looking to improve to 3-1. SU looking for its 22nd straight win over an FCS team, and especially it would be a crucial win before they go on this big road trip. Early on, it was Kyle McCord airing it out down the field and finding Umari Hatcher a big 40-yard gain down the field. Then again, later on in this drive, once again, he'd find that same man, number 5, Umari Hatcher, for a score. AJ, early success there for the Orange on that 13-play drive.
That first quarter was great from Syracuse. They were slinging the ball for McCord. They had a good run game going. It was the second quarter when things got weird.
It really did. The Orange, Daryl Gill there making a big catch there, and once again, Kyle McCord would go back to him in the end zone into double coverage there, finding it in there. McCord is such a strong thrower, and right there, great celebration there from Daryl Gill. But again, this game was pretty close. Blown coverage there by the Orange. It's Joe Pizanski to Max Mosey, 63 yards, untouched into the house. Jish, that is bad defense there by SU.
It was a little bit of a blown coverage, maybe a cover 3. Jaden Gould playing a little too flat. The corner and middle defender just could not be on the same page. Wide open space down the seam.
At this point in the second half, Holy Cross was getting tricky with it. How about the trickeration from the team from Worcester? That is Jacob Peterson, 27 yards to the house to make it 21-14. Syracuse rather, but Jackson Meeks there making up for it on the other end. Again, this was a one-score game here in the second quarter, but here now it would be a 2-score game. That was McCord to Pena, his 6th touchdown this season. The Orange up 28-14 after the half. And then again, McCord once again to Pena, finding some running room here. A great game here overall by the receiving core, AJ.
Yeah, these receivers showed their depth today. Trevor Pena had another strong game, and Jackson Meeks. But Kyle McCord at times did not look good. Another bad interception
there. Did look shaky. Yes, he did have an interception before the half, an interception there, looking for Daryl Gill, throwing into too many white jerseys there. At this point, SU now would find some troubles here on the kicking game. Brady Denneberg would at one point have a kick blocked. Later on, he would shank a kick wide left, but LaQuint Allen there making up for it, leaping into the end zone to make it 35-14. The Holy Cross here, oh, that's intercepted. Jaden Bellamy making a play. He had a chance at 2 picks earlier on in this game, but Jish, there he is into the end zone. That's got to be a great celebration there for the defensive back.
Hey, he's a playmaker. 2 career picks, 2 career pick sixes.
Syracuse takes this one 42-14. Another pretty impressive day there for Kyle McCord. I guess probably don't want that ideally, that completion percentage there, but still 350 385 yards rather, 4 touchdowns, another 4 TD game from McCord. What do you like to see out of McCord and his wide receiver 1 there, at least for this game, Jackson Meeks?
Yeah, I mean, Jackson Meeks, he finally had that big come-out game, and he was really strong. McCord was good on the day. He had those interceptions again. We'll talk more about that a little bit later, but all in all, Syracuse does get the result that everyone expected they would get.
I don't really like the Kyle McCord 385 yards. It's a great stat,
Sure.
but that means he played way too long, as I said at the top of this show. If he's throwing for 385 yards, a career high for him against Holy Cross, not in a game that was supposed to be a back-and-forth shootout, then something went wrong.
It really did. After the game, Fran Brown talked about how he wanted to play those starters, not too much in the second half, but looking to get a score before the end of the first half, but McCord threw that interception. Not what you want to see. We do want to see this guy, though, Srikar Rajendran, who joins us from inside the Loud House. Srikar, we've come to know Fran Brown as a really honest communicator, so I'd have to imagine he had a frank assessment of his team's performance in this game. Just take us inside that post-game press conference. What did the head man have to say?
You know, Peter, I actually thought that he was more composed in the press conference than he was during the actual game. I mean, you look at certain moments during this football game where Fran Brown was visibly frustrated and angry, especially when it came to those special team struggles. But in the press conference, cool as a cucumber, very mellow, obviously critical of those special team struggles, but in a 42-14 blowout win, there's always a lot more positives to take away than negatives, and I think Fran Brown did a great job of focusing on those positives rather than harping on the negatives. So overall, I think it was way more mellow than I was expecting from Fran Brown, but very cool, very calm, and very collected.
Srikar, AJ here. You talk about those positives. Perhaps the biggest positive in this game was Jackson Meeks. How impressed was head coach Fran Brown about the receiver's performance?
Yeah, AJ, I mean, Jackson Meeks had a day, 10 catches, 161 yards, and a touchdown. You compound that with a touchdown from last week against Stanford, and the development is clearly there. Fran Brown saw it as well. He noted that Kyle McCord has a big group of guys to go to. It's a good group of receivers. He doesn't think anyone has really stood out as the wide receiver one, but in this game, whenever Jackson Meeks got an opportunity, he made good on it. He made good on the balls that McCord was throwing him. And overall, that's all that Fran had to say about this performance. And when I asked Kyle McCord about his chemistry with Jackson Meeks, he said, yeah, if there's a 50-50 ball that I can throw up there, I'm very confident in Jackson Meeks to come down with the ball. And I think it speaks a lot about the growth that Jackson Meeks has seen this season and the opportunities he's been receiving along the way.
Srikar, to quote a wise man, special teams, special plays, special players, but there was not a special player in the kicking room today for Syracuse. Brady Denenberg went 0 for 2, was pulled from the game. They put in redshirt freshman Jaden O. What went into that decision, according to Fran Brown?
So Fran Brown actually talked about this at length, and he said that there was a moment where he wanted to give Brady Denenberg opportunities, and during those decisions on fourth down on whether to go for it or kick the field goal, he was seriously thinking about going for it, but instead opted to give Brady Denenberg the opportunity to hit field goals, and obviously that didn't happen, so he subbed him out, gave Jaden Noah a little try. That didn't go quite according to plan. He hit an extra point, but doinked one off the uprights. But overall, Fran Brown kind of described it as a learning experience. He wants to see what he has out of these players, and I guess we learned a lot in today's game.
Srikar, we really did learn a lot from this game. We've learned a lot from you as well. Thanks so much for breaking down everything you've learned from inside the dome. We're not going away here on Orange Press Pass. Still so much more to break down from this game. Syracuse wins 42-14, but that's not probably that score not reflecting how Syracuse fans feel about this one. Don't go anywhere on OPP. Plenty more to talk about from this one. Thanks for sticking with us here on Orange Press Fast. Peter Elliott alongside AJ Myers and Jish Sokolsky breaking down this game. Orange taking this one 42-14 over Holy Cross. An FCS opponent, and usually expect these games to be probably a bigger blowout. That's what we expected at the start of this one. Wasn't the case. And let's break down some of the reasons why it wasn't as much of a runaway game as it was. Let's start in the trenches here with the offensive line, which has been a big concern for SU over the course of this season, especially so this game. AJ, is the offensive line holding this team back?
I don't know if it's holding it back, Jish, but it's a problem. And it's becoming a greater problem as Syracuse's schedule wears on. Joe Panansky, the Holy Cross quarterback, threw for over 100 yards today, and he had all day in the pocket at times today to make those throws and to make those completions. I'm getting worried because Holy Cross is the least of concerning opponents that Syracuse will have to play. Going forward, there's going to be much tougher opponents, much better quarterbacks than Joe Panansky, and he had a really good day today. So I am getting worried about this offensive line. I don't know if it's a huge problem, but it's becoming a problem.
I'm not super concerned because the one sack we saw in the first quarter where a safety got to Kyle McCord, that was on backup right tackle Enrique Cruz. But you do have to hope that the offensive line stays healthy enough where they don't have to rely on some of their depth pieces, because we got a taste of what these depth pieces might look like, and boy, it was a pretty bitter taste, Peter.
It really was. You see there, the Orange allowing 4 sacks to an FCS defense. That is not ideal. They allowed 4 last week as well against Stanford, so this has been a problem all season long. We thought it would be a little better this week when you're facing kind of an undersized front 7, but still, Kyle McCord facing a lot of pressure, forced to use his feet a lot, especially in that first half. All right, let's move on to the other side of the trenches, the defensive line. We expected to see probably a little more pressure, I think, on that Holy Cross quarterback in the first half. He was still able to throw the ball a lot. Usually these FCS teams lean on the running game. They didn't do so. They had plenty of time to throw in the first half. Jish, I want to start with you here. How is it that the Syracuse defensive line generated significantly less pressure than Holy Cross did on Kyle McCord?
I think the main reason was because Holy Cross had a plan, and their plan was to shut down Fadil Diggs at all costs. Fadil Diggs has been the lifeline of the Syracuse defensive line, leads the team in sacks, and today they were double teaming him. They were putting him on an island. They were leaving him in jail. He recorded no sacks today, so there was nobody there to step up when he was shut down, and that to me is a little bit of a worrying sign, especially against an FCS opponent like Holy Cross that doesn't have the best rushing or passing numbers on the year.
Jish, if an FCS opponent could shut down Fadil Diggs, imagine what other teams will do to Fadil Diggs. Since Marlo Wax has gone down, everyone praised Diggs for how he stepped up and really become a force on this defense for the Syracuse team. But now the problem is there's no other options for Syracuse. Marlo Wax was a key for this team. He's going to be out for a while. Diggs has shown signs that he is good. However, though, someone else on this defense needs to step up, because against other opponents, they're going to shut down Diggs too, and it could be a long day for that Syracuse defensive line. Yeah,
Fadil Diggs, we've seen so much of so far this season, really, in the witness protection this game, not registering a single statistic. Hopefully we get to see more of him in the future. All right, moving on to another player who has really stepped up in this game, probably the game of his career. That is Jackson Meeks, the transfer from Georgia, coming into this Orange program. Of course, he played under Fran Brown at UGA. Was kind of a reserve player, played on special teams, only registered 10 receptions in his 3 seasons there down in Athens. But this game, he had 10 catches in the whole game, went for 161 yards and a touchdown. AJ, I want to start with you. Breakout game for Meeks. Is he now the team's best receiver?
I don't know if he's the team's best receiver because there have been a lot of promising wideouts we've seen from this team. However, though, Jackson Meeks had an excellent display today. Against Georgia last season, he made just 1 catch. Today he had over 10. He was really strong performance from him. And Fran Brown said this in the build-up to this game that, Jackson Meeks came over from Georgia to get more reps, to get that opportunity to display his skills. He's showing that here with Syracuse, and Kyle McCord and him are getting a real strong connection. Hopefully that can build into future games.
Today was obviously the Jackson Meeks day. Last week against Stanford was the Trevor Pena day. He had 10 catches. This week, Meeks has 10 catches. You almost wonder which receiver is going to get it next week, because it almost seems inevitable at this point. We recognize patterns as humans, right? Jackson Meeks had himself a career day today, but he's not the only talented receiver on this roster, as you were saying, AJ. They didn't even have Zeed Haynes today, his other Georgia transfer that happened. So I'm curious to see next week versus UNLV if it's Jackson Meeks again, or if defenses start to figure him out, and then it's like a whack-a-mole situation. Which receiver steps up next? You shut down one, who steps up? I'm really excited to see the future of this receiver.
I am as well, and it's a really exciting question to be asking, who will be wide receiver 1? That has not been a question we've been asking in the future. And in Rondé Gadsden as well, we didn't see much of in this game. Will he step up in the future? He was really limited in this game, just 1 catch for 4 yards. All right, let's move on. Jish, you mentioned earlier, special teams, special plays. In this game, they weren't making those special plays. Lots of trouble there in that unit. Two missed kicks, 1 blocked kick, and 1 that sailed wide right. They had to switch kickers in the middle of the game. Jish, I want to start with you. This is clearly a problem for the Orange, one Fran Brown addressed after the game. What is your solution if you're Fran Brown, especially when it comes to the kicking? Do you stay with Brady Denberg? Do you move on to the redshirt freshman, Jaden O?
It's a really tough question, Peter, and I wish I was in this room to discuss that with Fran Brown, but I think at the end of the day, Brady Denberg has more experience, had a couple of unlucky misses and a block one. He had a block earlier against Georgia Tech. I think the real solution is figure out what pieces around Brady Denberg, the long snapper, the holder, what can they do to make his life a little bit easier? What can they do to avoid kicks being blocked? I saw Demetrius Weatherspoon get hauled over by an FCS defensive lineman. So what can they do in the special teams coaching room to keep Brady Denberg clean so he can focus only on kicking?
And just, this isn't the first time this season Syracuse has had issues with special teams. Remember, against Georgia Tech, they've screwed up an onside kick. There was like 2 block punts, or there was 1 block punt and then a kickoff error. So the special teams problems have lingered all season long for this team. Today it was on the kicking game, and I know I've said this about 3 or 4 times, but Holy Cross is the least of your concerns when it comes to opponents on the schedule. Now Syracuse are going to have to play much more tougher opponents, the likes of NC State, Pitt, VT. Special teams problems cannot be an issue.
And you said it, against Georgia Tech, they persisted. We thought they were fixed at that point. There was an onside kick that was recovered by Georgia Tech in the late goings of the game. Special teams is one of 3 facets of the game for a reason. You can dominate on offense, you can dominate on defense, but if you're missing kicks, if they're sailing off the uprights, if you're doing little things wrong, then how can you win these games? And Syracuse, if they were playing anybody other than Holy Cross, this might have been an issue.
And special teams should not be a problem. You should not have to worry, oh, how is our special teams going to perform? No, how's your quarterback going to perform? How's your defense going to perform? How are the wide receivers going to perform? That's what your concern should be. Not, oh, is the special teams going to kick the ball correctly? Are we going to make field goals? That should not be a worry at all.
Well, for Holy Cross, there was one guy who really was a problem, and that was Syracuse's Jackson Meeks, who we are awarding our player of the game. His game today, anything but meek. He held in 10 catches for 161 yards and a touchdown. Again, only 10 catches over the course of his whole career with the Dogs. The transfer proving to be valuable today, catching 10 passes today from Kyle McCord. Meeks was feeling himself so much that he even incurred an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty when he was celebrating a teammate's punt return in the 4th quarter. We won't hold it against him, but we will hold it against you if you don't stick around as we head to break. We're about to hit the road as the Orange leave the friendly confines of the Dome. Don't go anywhere, as we're going to get set to talk about Syracuse as it plays its next 3 games on the road.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it. No way.
No way. No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Talk to your kid about vaping. Visit Talkabout.
Welcome back to Orange Press Pass. Switching locations here, Peter Elliott alongside AJ Myers and Jish Sokolsky. All right, the Orange wrapping up a 4-game dome stand to start the season, which means for the second straight season, the Orange will spend the entire month of October on the road. That'll be a tall task for this SU team as they first get set to head to Las Vegas on Friday at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas against UNLV. That'll be an exciting game, and I think we should hit the road as well alongside that.
I go to Las Vegas.
Let's go, Sin City. Come on, a couple college kids. That's the question, right? Well, I've got the keys, so we're going to go on the road trip. I've got my car. Let's start heading out. We've got to hit the road soon. And first, let's talk about what we're bringing alongside this road trip. Lots of good things for the Orange, so we want to take what exactly? AJ, what do you want to take if you're this Orange team out to the Granite State?
Peter, anytime I go on a road trip, I want to bring what works for me, what I know is reliable, and what definitely will be a success for me when I'm on the road. What that has been for Syracuse is a dynamic running game. Will Nixon and LaQuint Allen, when both of those players are getting consistent 8 to 7 carries, even a quarter, it helps. Against Georgia Tech, both backs had over 100 rushing yards. Today against Holy Cross, both backs had over 100 rushing yards. Syracuse can be a run-force team. It's not all about Comicore just slinging the ball. They can also rely on their running backs because they have two really talented running backs in LaQuint Allen and Will Nixon. And don't forget Yassine Willis. I know we haven't seen too much from him. He looked good at times today against Holy Cross. He had one good rush that he bursted out for, but he's another option there. There is depth in the running back room, and it's something Syracuse needs to rely on.
You know, AJ, I'm glad that you're bringing it. The old reliable, something they didn't bring last week versus Stanford, only 26 yards on the ground. But to me, when I'm packing for a road trip, I want to bring something new that sticks out to me, like the last cool shirt you just thrifted. You want to throw that in the bag. The new thing, the hot new thing for Syracuse football that we're taking with us on the road trip, it's King Joseph Edwards, the freshman edge rusher, had 3 sacks in his collegiate debut today. Not a single snap in his first 3 games in Orange. He absolutely injected life into the Syracuse defensive line that, as we said, was struggling to get pressures and sacks and make big plays in that first half. King Joseph Edwards came in, showed burst, was getting off of blocks quickly with ease, making life super uncomfortable. Joe Pasansky had a nightmare of a second half. So King Joseph Edwards, grab your belongings. You're coming with us on the road trip.
You're coming in the car as well. And I'd be happy to talk road trip snacks and other things we're bringing along as well after the show. But I like those 2 additions to our road trip. All right, let's also talk about what we're not bringing with us because there's only so much space in my car. It's not a tour bus, guys. It's just an SUV. So I want to know, Jish, we'll start with you here. What are you leaving at your house on campus?
It's simple. We're leaving the penalties far behind. We thought we left them behind when we transitioned from old head coach Dino Babers to new head coach Fran Brown, but the penalties have come back in an ugly way these past 2 games. Last week against Stanford, 7 penalties, 70 yards. This week, another 6, 53 yards, including 1 holding penalty that negated Umari Hatcher's 2nd touchdown of the day. That's unacceptable. If you're going on the road, you're going to a hostile environment, leave the discipline issues at home. Leave whatever you can't possibly bring with you to collect a win. That can, you know, you can always come home to that. But on the road, absolutely unacceptable. The Orange can't have that.
Just when I'm leaving on the road, I want to be clear with this. I want Oronde Gadsden to be on this road trip, but I want Oronde Gadsden to be on this road trip with 7, 8 receptions a game, not just 1. He only had 1 reception against Holy Cross. He should have had 4, 7, 8, 9, 10 receptions, 3 touchdowns. He didn't have any of that today, and against Stanford as well, he struggled. He couldn't get on the ball. I understand these good teams are double teaming him, rightfully so, because he is that talented. But now Syracuse, they got to work during practice, during film sessions. How can we get him more open? What are ways where we can draw those defenders to other receivers like Jackson Meeks, like Umari Hatcher? Get those receivers to double team, leave Gadsden more open because Oronde Gadsden is this team's best wideout option. I know these other receivers have done well. However, though, you got to get OG on the ball and get him in the end zone because that's how Syracuse is going to win games, Peter.
AJ, it's a great point. You would have expected him to have a bigger game. Again, he's 6'5", he's so physically imposing, and you would have expected against a smaller FCS team, he would have been a bigger target. But we saw this last year. You know, Oronde Gadsden is such a threat that teams double him. This happened right around last year and the previous this year. So it's good. At least he's making other players more available. Umari Hatcher, Jackson Meeks, like we mentioned earlier. All right, final one here before we get on this road trip here. When you go out for a trip, you want to set a bucket list, an itinerary of what we want to do. First it's UNLV, then NC State, and then Pitt. What do you want to take? What do we want to hit? What are our important bucket list items for SU? What do you want to accomplish by the time we come back to Syracuse after this road trip, AJ?
My big bucket list item, Jish, is I don't want Kyle McCord to throw any interceptions. Get rid of those INTs. He's had 4 in the last 2 games. In his Ohio State career, that never happened. First time ever for Kyle McCord to have 2 back-to-back interception games. He's better than that. He is such an accurate thrower of the ball. I think today you saw him rushing scenarios where he would just kind of loft the ball into double, even triple coverage. It would be an interception. Cut back on those interceptions. Show that you are one of the best quarterbacks in college football by being an accurate thrower.
So, AJ, it seems like you're more trying to avoid danger on this road trip. I want to go to new heights. I want to see Syracuse football take one to the house off a punt or a kick return. They came oh so close today. One was called back from a unsportsmanlike penalty from Jackson Meeks, as we talked about earlier. Davion Kerr came in as a punt returner, almost housed one. We've seen it countless times with Trevor Pena, who's emerged as the wide receiver 1. He's almost housed it a few times. We got to see a punt return touchdown sooner rather than later.
I love both of those goals. Hopefully the Orange check them off. Guys, my only question now is who's got shotgun? Who wants it?
I got it.
AJ first. AJ's got shotgun. I'm behind the wheel. We'll see you. Let's do this. We might be out in Las Vegas by Friday. Hey, we got to take one more break, but when we come back, let's take a look around the NCAA, the other scores here on this Saturday. We'll have more thoughts on this Orange win, and we'll preview that next game on Friday against UNLV. Stay with us for one more break. Wrapping up shop here on Orange Press Pass, Peter Elliott alongside AJ Myers and Jish Sokolsky. We're going to get out of here for family weekend so we can all enjoy some time with our family after the Syracuse win 42-14 over Holy Cross. All right, let's preview our look at next week's Orange Press Pass, next week's SU game. The Orange heading out west to the Sin City to take on UNLV. It's not like the Rebels have really been in the news recently, guys, right? Not any controversy related to NIL and Matt Sluka. AJ, please, let's break that down here. How can the Orange game plan for a team that doesn't have a quarterback right now?
I think this is going to be an interesting one. I think Syracuse needs to come out hot, first row game, come with the aggression, blitz the quarterback, and get Kyle McCord throwing the ball.
Look at those rushing yards per game, almost 300. You got to fill up that box and stop the run by any means necessary, Peter.
We don't know who we'll see behind center. It looks like it might be Haj Malik Williams. That is UNLV's backup quarterback, but Matt Sluka will not be under center over those NIL disputes with that team. All right, let's zoom out back here and let's talk about this game. We asked for your first thoughts. Now let's get your final thoughts on this game as Syracuse wins this one over Holy Cross. AJ, what do you take from this one?
My biggest takeaway is this should have been a bigger result from Syracuse, but now, Jish, I'm worried. I'm worried about this team going on the road. Can they perform in tough road environments? They couldn't really perform that well against Holy Cross today. I know the score looks like it was a blowout, but I'm worried. My concerns are growing with this team. I see a lot of flaws. I see a lot of areas where they don't have a lot of depth, Jish. I'm worried about this upcoming road trip.
AJ, you are absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. This could be the beginning of a slippery slope for the Orange. I think about the Army game last year. Sure, it was a win, but the cracks in the armor were present. They showed some flaws today in the offensive and defensive line. Those can't continue, and if they do, we might see a Syracuse losing streak as they hit the road.
Well, SU fans certainly not hoping for a slide, hoping that this is the start of a winning streak here as they go on the road. We thank you so much for joining us here on Orange Press Pass. For AJ Myers, Jish Sokolsky, our executive producer Rihanna Abil, our associate producers Brooke Kilgore, Josh Richardson, and Chris Schroyer. Thank you so much for joining us here. Hope you enjoy your family weekend. Syracuse wins 42-14 over Holy Cross.